Isn't there like a Hawkeye and Wolverine in Japan like storyline though?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because the guy whose name they don't have listed,
and he's like
or whose character they don't have, he was also in the Wolverine.
And he's the Silver Samurai, but the Silver Samurai was conflicted because they used the Silver Samurai as the suit of this evil dude, but the Silver Samurai was also the archer guy.
What if they bring in him as Silver Samurai?
That'd be really cool.
That'd be dope as shit.
Silver Samurai was
That's very possible.
Incredibly awesome character.
That's very possible.
Because Silver Samurai was like, it had this really unique duality based on whoever was operating the suit.
And in fact, that, like, there's ways, like, he's one of the characters that could be used to link those universes in a way that I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, but Silver Samurai, Logan, and Hawkeye all have this unique, like, thing.
Yeah. Man, that's interesting. Like, I think that's one of the theories the internet probably hasn't even got to yet.
Well,
because it's funny to me, most of the theories they're going off of like toy releases. But I saw, like, one of the things that people are talking about now was the toy release of the Ancient One, and I'm like, that was on the IMDb fucking at least a month ago, because that's where I saw that shit. And then, like I said, the dude who played Silver Samurai's name is on there, but they don't have his character listed. Then there's a couple people. There's like somebody who could be playing Death. Or, you know, she could, there's no way to tell who she could be playing, but that's like...
Yeah, because Thanos is always trying to impress her.
Right, and we haven't ever seen her in the MCU yet, but there's a possibility that they bring her in. And one of the things that I'm starting to, like, okay, this is like, I have thought about this, like, one of the things that could be possible when we're talking about time travel is, like, even if time travel happens, the time could correct itself regardless. So we could see the people go back in time only to course correct to things happening anyway. So then they have to go back and expect it, like, change it so that they, like, go into the course correction. So there's one, like, we don't yet know Thanos's motivation from when he became evil or started on his quest. So there is the possibility that the Thanos that we have seen in this one future was actually sparked by a time-traveling Tony Stark from another future, which is why he knew Tony Stark in the first place. So, and here's the reason why I say this. So if in one future Tony Stark gathers the Infinity Stones, goes back in time to kill young Thanos, but doesn't do it because at that point Thanos hasn't actually committed any wrongs yet, and Tony Stark
is still a good person.
It's still a good person, so he, like, can't do it. It's a matter of that choice. This is like Act 1, them setting that up to, like, where we think we're going to take out Thanos. But then this becomes where Thanos becomes obsessed with the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones, and finds out about Tony Stark. So this is also, like, this could become a perfect time loop as to why we've seen things play out in a certain way. So then also what we then find out is at that point Thanos would become a pawn of the time of the Infinity Stones, because he's exposed to them, he becomes obsessed, and then compulsed to do things in a way that Loki was. So he's, like, out of control of himself, which is why when he does the snap, we see the stones ask him if it was worth it, and it's basically him saying he gave up everything. So in his head, he sacrificed everything. He feels like he's the hero because we may be actually seeing him coming to retribute, or in retribution to the Tony Stark that has now gone back in time. So we're seeing an actual time, like, to see a perfect time loop be played out is one thing once you know it's a time loop. And I can point to The Watchmen as an example, because that's written as a perfect time loop. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't know it's a perfect time loop, so you feel like it's still a linear story. Whereas actually, there's ways that we could actually be seeing a perfect time loop, and then we see the one path out of it that Doctor Strange saw, which would then be something that happens post snap, which is likely where they bring in Captain Marvel or whatever, which would also still possibly be like Tony facing off with Thanos with the gauntlet.
The Captain Marvel story is how they introduced the Skrull. So we're not going to get a Secret War. I don't think we can get a Secret War now. It's because unless they include this as part of the Secret War. But the problem is that all predates the formation of the Avengers in this timeline. Because my understanding is that...
No, but we still haven't had the Captain Marvel movie yet.
I know, but there...
So we don't know... like how much they set up.
That's true, but there's a lot of it that takes place with a young Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury.
Right, and that's what I mean in the sense of if Sword is actually being set up like then, and Shield is the second one, like we may be seeing Sword like, and then the Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Like,
so we might get that. We might get that later, but I think this is the point where we're getting the Skrull story.
Well, what I'm getting at is
there's still time that they could have the Captain Marvel 2.
Well,
the Secret War.
This is the one thing. If Thanos is the big bad, then we've already blown the load for the movie.
Yeah.
You can't have the big bad already have their like existence be known. So there's probably a bigger bad, and this is where, to me, if they're like linking the Secret Invasion.
Well, the Super Skrull is a bad Mamma Jamma, but I'm pretty sure that Thanos is like super bad Mamma Jamma.
Well, but that we've also we know there's like the Celestials.
That's true.
So the Celestials are there too.
There's still a chance for them to introduce. Yeah.
So there's all these larger narratives that have been introduced that could then come into play. So this is one I just thought of like within the past few days. So the Everett Ross introduction, and there were allusions to a Christopher Priest storyline that was written where Mephisto is involved, and there's the very strong possibility that we're introduced to Mephisto as the big bad who's actually been at war with the Time Stones or with the Infinity Stones this whole time. So it's like this is a theory that's been put forth about Mephisto, but I remember specifically like in the Christopher Priest comic that's like Mephisto is the bad guy who's like just had nothing to do with Thanos then, but Everett Ross is like a character that ties those things together.
Yeah. Who
they alluded to, like the scene that I'm thinking of is like an interrogation. So the interrogation of Claw was something that had a similar like scene in the Christopher Priest comic. So they were clearly aware of this Everett Ross storyline. So that's when I'm like, they may be pulling some of the stuff from that as to why we don't have Black Panther 2 set in stone yet, because they need to like, that also may be why they involved Shuri and had so much of it take place in Wakanda, because they're still going to bring back like Mephisto's actually been like manipulating Everett Ross or something, like Everett Ross made a deal with Mephisto or some shit. Like, who knows how they could do it, but there's all these possibilities now of including that character in the first place. Like, Everett Ross was only so tangential, like, unless he's part of a larger storyline, which he could be, and that's where I mean, if you look at like
why go to the effort to replicating that kind of scene?
Exactly. Why go through the trouble of including this character in the larger universe unless you're setting him up as like there seems to be no wasted characters in the larger universe. At some point in time, everybody plays an important role in something, that they're a catalyst or a key. Like
the Purple Man's supposed to come back and like take over all of the Avengers at some point, except for Thor, because he's
Purple Man.
The Purple Man, the guy in
oh shit,
the guy in Jessica Jones who's like has supreme mind control abilities. He was the Purple Man.
Oh,
I can't remember what they called him in Jessica Jones, but that was
it Kilgrave?
Maybe, yeah. That's also that was the Purple Man, and there's like there's a whole story arc where the Avengers are subverted by his mind control. Like Tony Stark is like unable to, he's just doing all this like horrible like instilling robot fascism, and no one, they're all just under the control of his mind control. And Thor's been away doing something, comes back, and you know, he's the only one that is impenetrable because he's so like pure of motive or whatever. I always thought that that's the whole reason they kept him around. It's not because he's Jessica Jones' big foil. He just likes playing with her. She's like a mouse to him, and he's not just a cat. He's like a tiger compared to her in so many ways. Because there's a storyline where he takes out the Avengers. That's hardcore.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, Mr. Sinister corrupting all of the X-Men except for like who's some really resilient tank. Somehow Rogue has a head cold and is impervious to fucking mind control. You know, some really miraculous, like, or she ate some kind of gumbo that Gambit made for her, and she had an allergic reaction, and it made her impervious to mind control. And everyone else is under Sinister's power, or you know, something weird like that. That's like the level of weird, but that's I always figured that's why they had him around. He was always a much more interesting character. He would like manipulate people into doing his things, and so it's hard to catch him because you can never tell who's actually
under his influence
or how deep his influence reaches. It might be like he's influencing somebody who's paying somebody else to do something, so that person's doing something on their own.
Yeah.
Like that's some, and I always thought that stuff was cool because they explored this like criminal enterprise. You know, the Kingpin's a badass.
Yeah.
Like Kingpin is.
Well, and the only reason I say Mephisto is because in the Marvel universe, Mephisto is functionally the devil.
Yeah.
So like he'd basically be
his
like this would be like
around.
the fucking devil who's coming. Like so.
Well, he and Blackheart are like the main villains in Ghost Rider, right?
I think at some point, yeah, because I mean, he plays main villain in multiple.
Yeah.
Like I think Spider-Man at some point.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Black Panther at some point, and then
well, you know,
I don't think Ghost Rider's like out of the
Sorry, I always imagined like I mean, while we're talking about high level bad dudes, I always envisioned Shuma Gorath as being like Marvel's version of Cthulhu. Because it's this big interdimensional tentacle monster, and who somehow scaled its size for the relative size of objects in the universe it was trying to invade or whatever. Like, it was a really complex creature, and it appeared in like Fantastic Four, I think, and it happened in like Avengers, and it happened in X-Men. It's like he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are a lot of really interesting potential bad characters, villains, super monsters that even after Thanos, like that they kind of make Thanos not seem that bad.
Oh yeah.
Like that's to your point about Mephisto. I think there's a lot of potential still.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think Marvel's pretty good about, like, when they create evil people, they keep it pretty to like diabolical, like
can still be contained for the most part.
Yeah, and I think that's where DC is actually really good about making their villains more like real life villains, but with superhuman powers. Like where they'll do like fucked up shit and it'll be like, what is this a comic? Like, is this a comic book or like this is the rated R or rated M for mature? Like,
yeah.
But that's also where, again, I think, you know,
is that just a projection of human villainy? And
right, it is, and I think, you know, a lot of times people, you know, there's obviously Frank Castle and the Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen stuff, and they do dark shit in Marvel, but I think that's where, like, people, you know, people with their preferences argue one side, but I just, in general, when I read DC comics, I'm like often caught off guard with how real they'll tend to get, you know. I mean, it's not like Harbinger or what's it called, Image and Valiant put out some like shit that was like
Frank Miller's Batman routinely broke people, broke their bodies.
Frank Miller's his own thing.
And, well, yeah, the Dark Knight, what is the Return of the Dark Knight or Dark Knight Returns, or that there's that scene where he's like fighting the gang leader and just like breaks him. That shit's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he's old. Old Batman was incredibly brutal.
Yeah.
Old Batman used guns. Old Batman was like the version of Batman you really didn't want to see, because he didn't have time to waste like fighting people.
Yeah.
That
cartoon that animated film was really good.
Yeah.
Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah. It was a 2-part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was really good.
It was super dark, and it was like, whoa, this is the Batman that actually can scare criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't, like I was saying, he doesn't have time to waste beating people up. He's just gonna just break them and move on to the next person.
Yep.
Because he's old. He doesn't have time for that shit.
Well, and
he's got old Batman strength, which is like terrifying.
I don't know why. I feel like the one that they tried to do that in Batman vs Superman, but it was just poorly executed.
Yeah, they did.
If they would have had more time to devote to that storyline, I think it would have been more well executed.
Well, you know what I liked about that is that, like, you know, like Superman diverts the nuclear missile, the cruise missile, takes it out into space, and it detonates, and it like almost kills him.
Mm-hmm.
And he lands on the ground, and his like zombie body like reaches out and grabs a patch of grass, and it sucks the life out of the ambient air, and everything around it dies, and he starts to rejuvenate. And he slowly like returns to Superman. I thought that was like the most incredible interpretation of Superman's power, his ability to absorb ambient energy. Because they only discuss it when he's dead. It's like, oh yeah, he absorbs ambient ionic energy. Well, that means he absorbs energy like a battery, like a magnet. That's kind of cool. He stores it like a capacitor, a super capacitor, and he's tough as hell. That's incredible. But, you know, surviving a nuclear blast, like up close and personal, almost killed him. And I thought that was cool because they explore this upper limit of his abilities to survive things. And that was really incredible, actually. But yeah, you're right. With Batman versus Superman, they try to throw that in there, and it's like way too soon.
Yeah, it felt like an afterthought, or like
that should happen way after the Justice League is done and the Watchtower has fallen from the sky, and
well, because then you only know what's happening if you read those storylines, because they show the like Robin statue.
Yeah.
And it's like, people who've never read any of this shit, they're like, what the fuck is this? But if you read the stories, you know, okay, clearly that's like one of the Robins that got killed.
Well, I feel like there's I don't think people realize how many Robins there have been.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they have. Oh, and that's, you know, Titans was really good. Is really good about that.
I'm at like episode 2.5 of Titans right now.
I won't spoil it for you then, but
I love it. It's
really
like
good
the weirdest, most brutal version of Titans. Like Robin is not Robin. They might call him Robin still, but he's becoming Nightwing.
Oh, absolutely. This is
beautiful because like Nightwing as a character.
Glad you picked up on that.
Nightwing as a character is my favorite. Like, a mature Robin becomes Nightwing, and he is like he's the best. He's actually probably better. He's on a trajectory to be more capable than Batman, because he's got like his family stripped of him rage just like Bruce does, but he was also like a world-class, gymnast acrobat before all of it. And so in a lot of ways he started with a higher physical intelligence and higher potential physical intelligence, I think, than Bruce did. I feel like Bruce had to go through 20 years of training to gain that kind of physical intelligence that Dick Grayson had as a child. And so it's easy for Dick to become Batman level combatant.
Yep.
I feel like a Batman level combatant ninja. I mean, he basically trained Dick Grayson to be next in line of what was the League of Shadows. So that's hardcore. I mean, if he was in line by Ra's al Ghul, and then now it's Robin's next in line in that lineage, which is interesting because when what's his name, his actual biological child, it's not Jason Todd, he's like the red.
Oh, Damien.
Yeah, Damien.
Yeah.
Freaking Damien, who was like, I actually am fucking Bruce Wayne's kid. like they have this really incredible relationship where you can tell that it's like Nightwing is like, dude, I'm not trying to hurt you, but hold on, let me I survived Bruce's training. You're still a child.
Yeah.
And Damien's like, I survived my grandfather's training. Fuck you.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I think DC is doing a great job in terms of developing their universes and the depth of the characters' interaction. I think they've compartmentalized the Batman universe really well. The whole Bad Blood and Batman versus Robin thing and all that stuff. I think they've explored this really interesting side of Bruce Wayne.
Dude, you haven't gotten to that. You're gonna love that. Titans is. I don't want to spoil it, but I do enjoy when they explore different sides of people who we've been used to one side.
Yeah.
We do. I don't even know if we've seen Bruce on Titans yet, but
no, I'm I think the Starfire character is incredible.
Yeah.
It's like I as soon as they show her coming to in the car with the dude with the hole in his head, it's that's Starfire.
Yeah.
Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
It's she starts running away from him. It's wait, why is she running away from him? And then of course they reveal she doesn't remember anything.
Yep.
Oh, this is gonna get really interesting. This is gonna get extremely interesting. And when she shows up in the place and the guy shoots her and all hell breaks loose. I was waiting for that. That was Starfire is the coolest. Well, no, she and Raven are very cool characters, but I always enjoyed Starfire because they always played her off as kind of it wasn't amnesia. It was I don't understand these foreign customs.
Right.
And so it was always kind of played her off as a communication gap. But this one, it's there's no communication gap. She hit her head really hard. She doesn't know who she is. She just happens to be, a metahuman. So far.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And she's a badass. And she doesn't take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
And they give her free chicken and waffles.
Yeah. that character is really good.
It was great.
Man, I feel I can't wait for you to finish that show or that season. They renewed it for a second season.
Yeah. That's when I started watching it. When I read that it was not done. It was oh, good. I can actually put some time into this. Good.
The only reason I started watching that one is because it was no content in the middle of the winter, and it was Titans out, so I might as well check it out and watch it on the treadmill.
Well, I like that they've added the Teen Titans to the DC Cinematic Universe too. Yeah. The animated universe. I thought that the Judas contract, where they have was it Deathstroke or whatever, like chasing him around, or whatever, Slade. Anyways, I thought that was interesting how he like there's a character who like infiltrates the Teen Titans, and Damian gets sent to them because he can't handle hanging out with Bruce, and Bruce is tired of him. It was an interesting story. And then there was another one where it's all about Raven and her dad and having to go back into his realm to contain him.
Oh wait, which one was that? Is that on the TV show or the animated?
That was an animated movie.
Yeah, okay. Because then I was gonna say they do something like that. Yeah.
Like I'm sure they'll cover a lot of that stuff because the way that I think that the visualization of Raven's character, what they've revealed so far in Titans, is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like this unbelievably powerful.
Oh yeah, you're so early.
Little girl who's like, and I know it's really early. It's like whoa, she's like barely revealed her abilities because I know that at some point in the comics there'll be entire dark black page with these two red dots, or no, sorry, one red dot and these eye looking things and this bubble of weird chanting shit that I was like, what the heck is this crap? And then screaming, and then the next scene it's like Raven's just standing there and everything's kind of normal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what happened. They're not letting me see what happened. That's pretty heavy shit.
Well, the special effects on the show are good enough to where when they show you what happens, you're like, oh, so that's what happens.
Well, I saw her turn into smoke and consume somebody, but I feel like there's still a lot more to her. Like,
oh yeah,
there has to be, because in the comic books and the cartoons, she always had a lot more. There's like way more going on. I always thought she was an incredible character too. I'm looking forward to the Beast Boy too, because he walks around like a tiger apparently, and that's awesome.
Yeah. No, they definitely do that well too. Again, the fact that they brought in Doom Patrol in there too is pretty badass. Like, they're gonna have a Doom Patrol series, and I think they're really doing the TV shows right, because like I don't know if you follow any of the Arrowverse, but they just did the Elseworlds crossover. They do a crossover once a year.
Oh, cool.
And this one they introduced Batgirl or Batwoman.
Sweet.
So it's like, they're expanding the universe in a logical way, and it's still separate from Black Lightning, but between Gotham, Black Lightning, the Arrowverse, and then the Titans verse, I don't know what they're gonna call that, because there's like multiple TV universes now. So there's like at least two. Well, no, there's at least three, because Flash and Supergirl don't exist in the same universe. One's on Earth 1 and one's on Earth
6.
Yeah, I don't think it's Earth 2. No, so there's at least 3, because
there's a lot of Earths in DC.
Well, there's at least 52, but we've seen at least I think 4 on the Flash, because we've seen Earth X, we've seen Earth 2, Earth 1, or Earth Prime, and then I think we've seen, if Supergirl isn't from Earth 2, she's like from Earth 13 or some weird number that they've designated it.
I haven't actually seen any of the Supergirl stuff.
It's decent. It's a pretty good show. I watch it just because it's like
it's part of the universe.
Yeah, it's part of the universe. It's entertaining on its own, but
I think I've been waiting for them to introduce a more what's the word, populated Justice League, where they include her, before I was going to start looking into her backstory. I feel like once Justice League is cemented, they'll be able to extract every character from every story and be like, hey guys, it's movie time. And they'll be like, okay, what is our role? It's like, well, because you guys are TV series, you're going to be in supporting roles of the primary Justice or the mainline Justice League characters, and they'll provide, you know, like they'll be extremely important, but their screen roles will be like, you know, more action oriented. Because
it's funny you should say that, because one of the reasons I stayed watching Supergirl is because Martian Manhunter's on there.
That's awesome. I love Martian Manhunter.
And he's one of the main characters. So
Martian Manhunter is
like I didn't know that going in, and then when I found that, I was
now
like,
I need to watch
shit.
This show because Martian Manhunter is one of my favorites.
Yeah, he like really ties the show together.
Oh, I love what I love about his character is that he'll like be fighting somebody and he'll get into some like grappling situation and he'll just like grow some extra arms to start beating on him. Or he will like reduce his tangibility to like vapor and they'll just fall through him and he'll just become tangible again and then pick them up and say like, are you done now? And like, and if not, he'll just like continue to touch them and like terrorize their mind until they, you know, start drooling and whimpering on the floor, that kind of stuff. Martian Manhunter's crazy powerful.
Oh yeah,
like he can go toe to toe with Superman and give Superman a run for his money until Superman's like, wait a second, get out of my head, and then it's a fisticuffs.
I don't know if he phases yet on this one. I don't remember.
Has he turned into like crazy otherworldly creatures? Because I always thought that was like when he needed to like go into like beast mode, he actually went into beast mode.
I mean, he's turned into like, I guess you find out like he wasn't, there's like the green Martians and then there's the white Martians or whatever, and then I don't think they're Martians, but the white ones, they look like beasts when they fight, but he looks like he has like a cape and shit.
Oh yeah,
he looks like the costume.
Like the Martian, yeah. Then I need to watch this show because Martian Manhunter is fucking awesome.
Yeah. And they did a pretty good job with the costume.
Definitely a mainline Justice League character.
Like,
once they realize how powerful he is, he's like totally on par with.
Because he like hangs out the station most of the time.
Yeah. He's most once they have the watchtower, he's most at home there because then he doesn't have to worry about people freaking out about him. He can stay in Martian mode.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a good character, a really complex character.
Yeah.
What I've liked so far about Titans is the Hawkman, Hawkgirl characters and the complexity of like right off the bat. There's like, you know, the Hawkman and Hawkgirl and Robin, and then Raven. It's like, whoa, there are all these birds.
Oh, Hawk and Dove.
Oh, Hawk and Dove. Or whatever.
Yeah, because Hawkman and Hawkgirl are actually on.
Oh, that's a different.
Yeah, they're on Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then
actually,
who they are.
I think Hawkman. I don't know if he gets killed. I don't think he does.
So, my understanding of Hawkman in the greater DC context is that he's like a Silver Age character. He's like from the early age of DC, and has his own story universe, and it's all about him finding Hawk Woman, and he's got like, you know, the wings, and they're aliens, and they come from some ancient civilization.
Yeah, they're from a different like race.
He's trying to find his wife. They were like, you know, somehow exiled, and they're always locked in battle against like the great evil. And so they're always destined to have to sacrifice themselves to vanquish the evil and be reborn. And so every time this happens, they're reborn somewhere else, and they're always destined to find each other. And eventually they remember who the other is. But so here's the kicker: we're like, you know, 7 or 9 or however many generations into the cycle, and she can't stand him.
Yeah, that's the one they do in Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay, because because
he's like obsessed, like he's still in love with her, but she's like not into him. So then like they break up. Like, I guess I don't want to ruin it, but that's like, you've read it enough to where I'm not spoiling it for you.
I've
so that's the like
Hawkman and Hawkwoman.
That's the version we see. Except they take some liberties with they're like immortals.
Technology.
They're not from a different planet. They're like immortals that had some magic or some shit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
Well, they got to make him. You know, there's this really weird obsession with making things make sense.
I don't think they're from a different planet, but
no, none of that stuff matters because I've noticed there's this really strange. Our society has this really strange obsession with everything making sense.
Yeah.
And everything doesn't have to make sense.
No, absolutely.
And so it's like sometimes I find it more enjoyable when it's just like what. Yeah. Because then I wasn't expecting it, and then my brain really has to scramble to like understand what's going on, and it doesn't have to make sense. They could be in a universe that has their own physics.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I like that. I think that's exciting. I think it's exciting the idea of storytelling that involves reimagining the physics of a universe.
Mm-hmm. And not having that be the only focus of the story.
Yeah. That it's just secondary. Like, we all accept it. We all know that the rules are different. We don't even make it an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if somebody's able to suspend disbelief with something like that, then the storyteller has done their job, I think. So,
yeah. No, I definitely have to watch these now because I've been putting off Legends of Tomorrow because I just haven't had time.
It doesn't really matter in the universes.
It's all prequel. It's all way early, right?
It's hard to say because I think I don't know if they ever make it matter because of the way that they're bouncing through time. I think that they can't make the story affect the main Arrowverse, so they allude to it. So, like, for example, in a recent episode of The Flash, one of the characters like has written a book in the Legends universe, and the Flash reads the book or something. So it's like they're not really influencing the universe, but we know they exist. But most of the time,
but that's like communicating over long distance time period.
Absolutely, right? But I guess in these universes, most of the change happens within universe anyway. So like, it's only in the crossovers that Arrowverse will affect, or Arrow will affect Flash, or Flash will affect Supergirl. Sometimes they pop up on each other's episodes, or one of the tertiary character or secondary tertiary characters will.